Hey, this is Brett. We're taking a break today from a new episode for some R&R. So we're going to rebroadcast episode number 678, Physical Benchmarks Every Man Should Meet at Every Age with Dan John. It's one of our most popular episodes from 2021. Hope you enjoy it. We'll see you back on Monday with a brand new episode. Brett McKay here, and welcome to another edition of the Art of Manliness podcast. As men, we all want to be physically capable. We want to be able to save our life in two ways. First, in the more metaphorical sense of wanting to preserve it in a healthy, fit form for as long as possible. And second, in the more literal sense of being able to make it through an emergency unscathed. How do you know if you possess that kind of life-saving physical capability? Well, it's time to do more than wonder and really check in with yourself. And my guest today has some helpful benchmarks that guys from ages 8 to 80 can use to see if they've got an operative level of strength, mobility, and conditioning. His name is Dan John. He's a strength coach and the author of numerous books and articles on health and fitness. Today on the show, Dan walks us through the fitness standards the average male should be able to meet from childhood to old age, beginning with the assessments he gives to those who are 55 years and older, which include carrying their body weight, a long jump, and something Dan calls the toilet test. We then reach back to childhood, and Dan discusses the physical skills kids should become adept in, which were inspired by a turn of the 20th century physical culturist who thought every individual ought to be able to save his own life. And these skills can be broken down in the following categories: pursuit, escape, and attack. And we enter a conversation with the physical standards those in the 18 to 55-year-old range should be able to meet, including how much a man should be able to bench press, squat, and deadlift, and the walking test that's an excellent assessment of your cardiovascular conditioning. After the show's over, check out our show notes at aom.is/benchmarks. All right, Dan John, welcome back to the show.
Hey, well, thanks so much. It doesn't seem like it was that terribly long ago.
Well, it wasn't that long. It was October. So that was 3 months ago, 4 months ago. And the reason I brought you back on so soon, because we had a great conversation last time, wide ranging, but there was this series of questions I wanted to get to that we couldn't get to because the podcast would have gone on for another hour. But it's based on this article you wrote for T Nation back in 2016. And it's called 10 Things Every Lifter Should Be Able to Do. And basically, you just kind of laid out some tests that you want lifters to take place. And I think this is going to be applicable to just regular guys who want to be healthy, strong, physically fit. Sure. But these tests are designed to highlight weaknesses that you can work on to, for longevity, overall strength, flexibility, mobility, etc.
So let's just start. Let me start with plus 55. Is that okay with my little standards there?
Yeah. So you're talking about people who are 55 above.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then let me give you how I assess people. And then let me talk about how you can start with a young person and build these qualities up so that literally for the rest of their life, they have a handle on certain things. How does that sound? Sounds
good.
So one of the hardest things, I don't know how old you are, but it's weird because you begin to pick up on certain things. I think athletes, the bloom of an athlete is 16 to 35. And after that, things, and then you do have a Tom Brady and you have a Drew Brees, certainly George Blandis, but and of course, in my world, throwing, you have people stay around a long time, but that's when people are athletes. About 36 to 55 or so, you begin to notice, and it's funny when you talk to somebody who's 40, I'm 63, and they'll say, I feel like I've lost a step, and I try to be kind, it's like, yeah, trust me, you did. But, after 35, 36, it's when you start having those lean body mass issues. You tend to swell up a little bit. You become softer. Generally, you're trading lean body mass. You might stay the same on a scale, but your lean body mass is going in one direction. Sadly, your fat's going in the other. Your fat's going up and your lean body mass is going down. So, but once you get to 56, then we have to really think about health and longevity. Well, ideally, from age 25 to 55, you wore your seat belt. You didn't smoke. You didn't say, hold my beer and watch this, But once you get to 56, here are the tests I use, okay? First, can you stand on one foot for 10 seconds? Yes or no? If you can't, I send you to a doctor because I want to find out what's going on. In 1991, I was working with this guy, very famous developer here in Utah. And out of nowhere, he couldn't stand on one foot. Well, it turned out he had prostate cancer. Now, there was no correlation, and don't worry about that. But the fact that I was so insistent he see a doctor saved his life. I work with people with MS, and 4 days a week they can stand on one foot, 3 days a week they can't. It would be nice to know if they have MS or whatever the issue is. Does it make sense to you? Number two is I think it's really important to be able to sit down in a deep squat, hold for 30 seconds, then stand up. That's a test of mobility, flexibility, strength. I don't know if you know what the toilet test is, but that's the determining factor about what kind of elderly care you get. Because if you can't get up and down off the toilet by yourself, you have to have much more care. Here's another one I have. It's odd because men struggle with this one. Hang from a bar for 30 seconds. And I always tell people, if something bad happens and there's a flood or something, that 30 seconds will give me a chance to save your life. Without that, bad things can happen. So stand on one foot, hold the squat 30 seconds, stand up, hold on to a bar for 30 seconds, pick up, and it can be any way you want, your body weight and move it. So maybe have really, really high farmer bars, put body weight up, pick it up, and be able to move it. That one a lot of people push back on, but I still stick with it because that's why I'm the guy everyone calls to move couches, and I'm 63 because, I'm a good couch mover, and I'm very proud of that, And then the next one you can argue with, but I still like it. This is post 55. Be able to standing long jump your height. So if a rattlesnake's near your foot, you can leap away. And by the way, you don't have to jump your height. You have to long jump as far as you're tall. Okay. So those basic little tests. And the final one, I like to observe how you get up and get off the ground. Get down on the ground and get back up. I have a drill called the get back up test. And of course, there's also the Brazilian get back up test, or you can just do a Turkish get up if you'd like. But that little body of tests, if you can hold on to those, you're going to have a if you can do those at 75, 85, you're going to have a fair amount of independence.
So this is for people who are 55 plus. That last one, the stand up off the ground test, we've written about that, and it's interesting. There's been studies that show that there's a correlation between people who can get up off the floor with fewer limbs. So if you can get up off the floor without using your hands or your knees, your risk of mortality, like, okay, everyone always quibbles on that. Well, everyone's going to die, so your mortality rate's 100%. But it's like your mortality rate is, you're more likely to have a healthy, vibrant life if you can do that compared to someone who can't. Yeah,
and the way the Brazilian guy did it, it's an 8 out of 10. If you can score an 8 out of 10, because of my hips, I have to put one hand down. But at 63, I still score an 8 out of 10. And I always do. So on paper, that's, what is that? It gives me a 20-year buffer. So yay for me.
Yeah, and I think some people don't realize that. Like, as you said, as you get older, the thing that often kills people, if you don't get cancer or some other, dementia or Alzheimer's, something like that, the thing that often, it slowly kills you is like you lose muscle mass. You lose the ability to, like, if you fall down, you can't get up off the ground.
Brett, the most dangerous thing statistically in my house for me is the floor. The floor is the most dangerous thing in my home for me at my age. The bathtub has, if I slip and hit obviously, it's the floor. It's the floor. It's the floor. And I ask personal trainers when they say, when's the last time you saw your mother or father voluntarily be on the floor? And most people say, I don't even remember that. Little story, just a small little thing. I read somewhere, most people will never remember the last time they picked up their child. So about a month ago at one of our family parties, I walked over my 2 daughters and picked them both up. just so I'd be able to say, that's the last time I picked you up.
We also have had, going to this idea of longevity and quality of life as you get older, we had a guest on the podcast, I think it was last year, who wrote about longevity. One of the interesting insights that he talked about in that podcast or shared was, one of the things that you can do to really increase your quality of life as you get older is to make sure you're continuing to walk on complex landscapes.
Oh, like on and off a curb if you live in a neighborhood.
Curve,
like
or like go to like the mountain, if you live in a rocky area, go hike a trail. Because what happens is like if you stop walking on uneven surfaces, you basically forget how to do it. And so that whenever an old person, when they haven't, like the only thing they've walked on is just really flat surfaces, they encounter that, they don't know how to do it, and they trip and they fall and they break a hip.
Exactly. And now, I can even push that farther. We now know that also is a major factor for issues of the brain. And so, do you know what shaker plates are? Dave Asprey, he's the guy that's Bulletproof Coffee, okay? And agree or disagree with what he talks about, but he really emphasized using the shaker plates. Now, I bought a real inexpensive one just to try it out, and I fell in love. But standing on a shaker plate and doing 1 foot drills, even something as simple as a speed skater, or doing a goblet squat or a press on it. So that, okay, you can't see my hands, but my feet are both shaking. Well, because it's such a complex system, if you're following along, I'm simply doing a 1-arm press on a shaker plate. But since the complexity is shot through the roof, my brain and my nervous system have to adapt instantly to all that crazy complexity. My bones, by the way, there's a new argument about osteoporosis that by losing complexity is why, so your bones get simpler and simpler and simpler, and then they break. So what you're saying is tying right into the stuff I've been reading and learning in the last few months, is that the more complexity the world is, the better it is for the aging person. When Thoreau said simplify, the correct thing for him to have said was complexity for long-term, survival or something like that, if you will.
And just to clarify, a shaker plate, is that something you stand on and it vibrates you?
Yeah, and you don't have to buy the $15,000 one. I bought I think it was $200 one. But now remember, I think it's my job, Brett, I literally think it's my job not to just go, oh, that's a good idea, but actually try it, drink the Kool-Aid, if you will, go deep, and then come on the other side and say, that was a whole lot of nonsense, or that's a game changer. So, but I like what you said. You can also do complexity by walking on a balance beam, jumping rope, stepping up and down off the curb, playing hopscotch is probably one of the smartest things you could do, as an adult. So I agree 100% with that, very much.
So let's recap these, tests for people who are 55 plus. So the first one is, can you balance on 1 foot for 10 seconds?
Right.
Then it was, can you do a squat and hold it for 30 seconds?
And then stand up.
Without any assistance. And that's so you can get off the toilet.
That'd be ideal, yeah.
Right. Then it was also be able to bend over, pick up something that's your body weight, and then carry it around?
Pick up your body weight and move it.
Okay. And then you also talk about the farmer's carry as well.
That could be the farm. That could be, obviously, it could be the farmer walk. But you could have really, really high trap bar and do it, or have the weight up on blocks. The idea that you can carry your own body weight, that seems to be important.
And that comes in handy because like when you're going to have to carry stuff, you're always going to have to carry stuff, even when you're 50, 60, 70 years old. Long jump your height. Doesn't mean jump up in vertically your height, but long jump your height. Yeah. And then hang from a bar for 30 seconds. Did I miss any?
Yeah. You missed getting up and down off the ground.
Yeah. And then getting up off on the ground.
Some kind of assessment of getting up and down off the ground. Yeah.
Gotcha. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. And now back to the show. Well, let's move on to someone who, is in that 18 to, 50 range. Or does it change as like, say you're like, right now I'm 38.
Child.
Yeah, I'm a child. I'm spry. Does any of this change? Is it going to be any different for me compared to, say, a 25-year-old?
Well, tell you what. You know what? I'm going to give you my full evaluation next. Is that okay? But let's slide back to little Brett as a happy little waif of 8 years old. Okay.
Well, I wasn't a waif. I was a big kid. I was husky. Okay. I had to wear the husky underwear from Sears.
Okay, so little Brett wearing his husky underwear from Sears Roebuck.
All right.
The catalog came out and he went shopping. Okay. That'll age you, by the way. I would go. So I'm a big believer in the insights of a guy by the name George Herbert. Herbert in English, Herbert in the French. He came up to a volcano that blew up an island, and he started saving survivors. Okay? He couldn't help but notice something about the people who survived. They knew how to climb, they knew how to swim, they knew how to do a couple different things. And so he started what we would now call physical culture when he went back to France. And even if you've never heard of him, I guarantee you've heard of him. Are you okay with me going down this direction?
Yeah, let's go down this road. Yeah, this is good stuff. This is sort of like MoveNat, natural movement. I think they got their influence from Herbert.
So let's just break it down the way he did. And then I'm going to add two things, okay?
Okay.
Because I can't help myself. So the first is what he would call pursuit, okay? And pursuit is walk, run, and crawl. And he would expect an 8-year-old, 9-year-old to be able to do those. I fell in love years ago when I found out that this Irish school taught proper sprinting techniques to their elementary school kids. I thought to myself, they've got it. But walking, running, and crawling, here's the funny thing. How often do you see kids crawl in PE classes? Now, when I taught, we did tumbling and everything else and crawling because I listened to my Herbert. So pursuit, walk, run, crawl. Okay. Oh, and real quick, just a side note, but especially when I read your site, Brett, this might be a real valuable thing for them. There are probably 2 games that are older than probably maybe even language. One is tag, T-A-G, tag, and the other one is hide and go seek. Both teach you to be a very good hunter-gatherer. Both teach you to be a very able person in any kind of combat. So to me, if you want to do paleo fitness, just go out with a bunch of school kids and play tag and hide and go seek. And you'll see that how in that pursuit one there, walk, run, and crawl, that is hide and go seek and tag. If that's too weird, Brett, just say, Dan, that's too weird. Okay.
No, that makes sense. So this stuff for you're going not even 18-year-olds. You're going this is for kids. Like if you're a parent, you want your kids doing this stuff. All right.
Yeah. When's the best time to learn to crawl? Probably when you're 2. When's the second best time to learn? Probably today. So there you go. And then there's escape. So we had pursuit followed by escape. And that's climb, balance drills, jumping, and learning how to swim. And it's interesting. I work a lot with the military. We're going to work. That's all we'll say. But I mean, it's interesting because to get yourself off of almost any major problem spot in the world, if you can get yourself into the ocean, either by swimming or by stealing a boat, that's usually the best route to safety. And that was true forever. So you need to practice climbing, and I call that brachiating. You need to practice balance drills because, sometimes when you're trying to escape, you're running down a gutter on top of a roof. You got to jump to the next roof and then, of course, swim your way out. And his third area was what he called attack. And this is more my life, okay? That's throwing, lifting, and fighting. And all 3 of those skills should be addressed long before they need to be addressed. And if you don't mind, let me add 2 others that he doesn't have. I would include bike riding, because I think it's much better to learn how to fall. It's better to fall off a bike at 5 than at 55, right?
Right.
And then the other area I would add is either what I call tumbling, but nowadays it's more often called break falling, learning to take a fall. But when I give you this list, walk, run, crawl, climb, balance, jump, swim, throw, lift, fight, bike ride, break falling, you get a sense to see the importance of play in a playground. Yeah, obviously you need to learn how to swim and learn how to fight and learn how to bike ride, and probably you maybe even learn how to lift and throw. It would depend. But how foundational important all this can be to a person's life. If you have all those skills, in fact, it might be worth your time as with your site to find people and say, hey, do an article on, or do an article on teaching kids how to, this is running, sprint mechanics. This is crawl mechanics. This is climbing mechanics. This is how to practice your balance. Here's jumping. Here's, swimming. You probably already have the bulk of it on your site from my memory, but it's such a gift that you can give your children to be able to have that entire skill set.
Yeah, we do have articles on all those things. Crawling. We did one on balancing, like a 2x4, just like having a 2x4 in your house.
Yeah, I saw the article. The guy, that was excellent.
Yeah, it's super easy. And that's another thing, as a parent, what you can do is make sure you're paying attention to what your kids are doing in PE. And if they're not doing those things, well, join the PTA and use your public speaking skills to persuade them. Maybe we should do some of this stuff. But if they're not getting it, make sure they're outside playing. One thing my wife and I have done is we found a guy here in Tulsa who does parkour and I think he's done some MoveNat stuff. Anyways, we take him to the park with our kids and he goes through things like rolls, like how to fall. He's a coach and it's been really fun to see our kids take to it and the skills they've been learning from that.
And then, on the area of throwing, I mean, I don't want your kid necessarily to be a Major League Baseball pitcher, but it'd be nice to know all the throwing arts, be able to do the basics of lifting, the Olympic lifts, the power lifts, kettlebells, the kettlebell basics, the calisthenic basics. And you can push back on fighting until it's time to fight. You can agree or disagree, gentle listener. You can agree or disagree. Last week, a bunch of thugs took over our Capitol. And one of our congressmen, who's a former Ranger, started gathering things like pens and stuff like that to defend his fellow congressmen. And to me, you never know when it might be your time to defend those you love. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not. But there are bad people in this world. And it's the job of those of us who are fast twitch monsters to protect them.
All right, so we've talked about guys who are over 55. We've talked about kids who you say should only be doing basic skills, the George Herbert type of stuff till about age 15. You argue that kids really shouldn't be doing any specialized training before that age. So let's turn now to the guys in between. Guys between the ages of 18 and 55. So I know as an introductory assessment, you want people in this range to do the same kind of tests you do with the older guys. Stand on one leg for 10 seconds, standing long jump, farmer's walk with body weight, the get back up test. And you do these same sorts of tests to see where they're at before you start training them.
Well, and I don't want to give you too many kudos because I don't want you to head this well, but the one thing I like about your site is this vision from youth to death, right?
Right.
So if you decide to follow the teaching, if you did a Herbert youth and then had an elite, like myself, I had a Herbert youth, and then I became a discus thrower Highland gamer, and I retired July 24th, 2010, 11 years ago now. That's amazing. 10 and a half years ago. Huh? And now, but all that stuff I did then, I can hang for up to 2 minutes. I can, you know what I'm saying? If you have the foundations and build it up, you should have the same basic test core your whole life.
Right. Okay. Let's say someone, you do these assessments on, say, a 35-year-old, and you decide it's a man and they're ready to focus on strength and mobility, and you get some programming going for them. Yeah. At a certain point, you'll want to assess again and see how they're doing and see if they're reaching, if they're getting strong. So do you have assessments for that as well? Like, do you have metrics or benchmarks you like?
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay, let's go through the ones that are in my book that start off in my book, Intervention, but now, I mean, I have them in a bunch. I have about 1,000 different ones, but let's go through for men. I expect a man to be able to bench press his body weight, okay? I expect a man to be able to do 5 pull-ups. I expect a man to be able to deadlift 150% body weight. Okay, got that. You weigh 200, you got to be able to do 300, right? That's not very much at all. I expect to be able to body weight squat, okay? And I expect to be able to do a farmer walk with your body weight, okay? Oh, one other thing. If you work with me, I expect to be able to do a Turkish get-up, both left and right, with a Dixie cup half filled with water on your fist. Instead of weight, the Dixie cup, because that means if you can do the water, we always joke when you get hit by the water, we call it baptized, but that shows mobility and flexibility far better. Okay, is that okay?
That makes sense. It sounds like something you'd see in a karate movie from the 1980s.
Yeah, and it's a good one.
So we've been talking a lot of strength stuff. What about, I know you're a big proponent of walking and hiking.
Yeah.
Do you have similar metrics or tests that you like to put your clients through for, should they be able to walk without load in a certain amount of time or with load, et cetera?
Now, I'm a fan of Phil Maffetone on this. So when we do this, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. Don't take what I'm about to say wrong, but I think you have to have some other things set. So I'm a big believer in what's called the MAF test. Okay, so it's a 3-mile walk. Okay, all right. So do you mind if I explain it real quick?
Yeah, go into it. This is new to me, so I would like to hear about it.
So Maffetone numbers are 180 minus your age is the top end for the test, and 160 minus your age is the low end for the test. Now, what you have to get your heart rate in those numbers, I don't know. For me, it's really easy. If I put on 5-pound ankle weights on both feet and I carry 6-pound heavy hands, my heart rate gets into that zone very easily. Okay? Because, I'm 63, so it's not that hard. Okay, so mentally, you got to figure out those numbers, and your job is to stay between those numbers the entire test. Not above at all. And don't cheat by running, okay? And what you're going to do is at the end of every mile, you're going to log the time you went through. So do you see how many factors are going on here?
Yeah.
So it's going to be, for us, we do a 12-lap test. I keep my heart rate right inside those Maffetone numbers. Fortunately, I have a nice heart rate monitor that can tell me when I go above it. I've got it set that every few minutes it says, whatever, heart rate 112, whatever. So when I do the first mile, say it takes me 19 minutes. Second mile takes me 21. Third mile takes me 29. Just staying in my heart rate numbers. I train for a couple of months. I do the MAF test again, and my numbers are 17, 19, 24 for the mile splits. What we can guess from this is that my conditioning has improved because my mile splits have dropped with my heart rate in the same zone.
Right. Okay. So you can go faster without having your heart having to work harder.
Yes.
Right.
You follow it. Okay.
Right.
Excellent. Now, I'm a track and field coach, so I don't care what your heart rate is in the 400 meters. I don't care. That sounds horrible, but if you start off the first day I trained you, Brett, and you ran a 75, 6 weeks later you run a 55, and the next year you come back and you run a 48, I don't care what your heart rate is, you've improved. You got that?
Right.
And that's great for track and field, but it's not great for lifelong cardiovascular training. That's why I like the narrow step-by-step of this. Does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? I like the fact that you have the heart rate, that narrow window of heart rate as a standard, the exact same test if you can do it, and then watch the numbers come down.
One follow-up question with this assessments, how often should you assess yourself? I mean, I imagine if you do it too frequently, you're going to get a lot of noise.
You're going to keep the tests is what's going to happen.
Yeah, but if you don't do enough, then you can't see a trend line. So what's the sweet spot?
When I fold clothes and do dishes, I practice standing on one foot. I actually even do it sometimes when I have an electric toothbrush, and I'll just stand on one foot. So I do try to cheat the balance test because I feel like that's one of those tests because if I'm doing my teeth, I'm adding a ton of complexity to my teeth brushing, which I think is good for my brain and maybe, who knows, even for my bones, okay? So the standing long jump, I see no issue with that. Monthly every 6 weeks. The farmer walk, monthly every 6 weeks. And the get back up probably should be part of your warm up anyway. So yeah, the full test, let's say every 3 months. Pieces of it it was appropriate as kind of a fun little thing.
No, it's something like you can do with your kids too. Like we do the get up test. Like whenever we're bored, great fallback activity is, well, see if you can get up off the ground without using your feet, and find different ways you can do it.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, this has been a great conversation. We covered a lot of ground. Is there some place people can go to, find these assessments and learn more about them and the complexities and nuances of them?
Well, I have a YouTube video going through it. Yeah, so go to YouTube, find Coach Dan John. Good luck. I have, 1,000 videos, 10, 15 workshops. It's an honor I give them away free because I love what I do now. I have a website called danjohn.net, which, my God, if you decide to print it off, good luck. There's 3,000 pages, okay, of stuff to print off. And then I have my pay site, and I'm sorry about that, but I have to pay people for doing all this other stuff, called danjohnuniversity.com, okay? And tell you what, let me give you a code right now. Let's do this. Art of Man, okay?
Art of Man.
And so, gentle listeners, you'll get it's usually $29 a month. You'll get for $29, you get for 3 months. And Happy New Year to you, okay? Here's the thing I think I like best about it, Brett. If you haven't been on the site, it's called the Workout Generator. You press what equipment you have. You press how many days a week you want to work out, the intensity level. And then you press a button and it gives you this wonderful spreadsheet with once you just got to play with it. You may never ever use another. I know this sounds crazy, Brett, because it's my brain. I can't coach as well as the Workout Generator coaches. Okay.
All righty. Well, fantastic. Well, Dan John, thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, and if you don't mind, and I've said this before, I don't know if you guys realize what a great site you have. I'm not blowing smoke at all. Your site it's an absolute, and I mean this, it's an absolute honor to be part of it. The quality of work that you guys have on there, the insights, I wish I would have come up with your idea because I think it's just brilliant. I mean, so there's a little bit of jealousy there, but it is really a phenomenal place, and I recommend it constantly, okay?
Well, thanks so much. We really appreciate that.
You bet.
My guest today is Dan John. He is the author of several books. They're all available on Amazon.com. Just check it out. Just search for Dan John. You can find out more information about his work at his website, danjohn.net, as well as danjohnuniversity.com. Also, check out our show notes at aom.is/benchmarks, where you find links to resources where you can delve deeper into this topic. Well, that wraps up another edition of the AOM podcast. Check out our website at artofmanliness.com, where you find our podcast archive, as well as thousands of articles written over the years about pretty much anything you think of. And if you'd like to enjoy ad-free episodes of the AOM podcast, you can do so on Stitcher Premium. Head over to stitcherpremium.com, sign up, use code manliness at checkout for a free month trial. And once you're signed up, download the Stitcher app on Android or iOS, and you can start enjoying ad-free episodes of the AOM podcast. And if you haven't done so already, I'd appreciate it if you take 1 minute to give us a review at Apple Podcasts or Stitcher. It helps out a lot. And if you've done that already, thank you. Please consider sharing the show with a friend or family member who you think would get something out of it. As always, thank you for the continued support. Until next time, this is Brett McKay. Remind you not only to listen to the AOM podcast, but put what you've heard into action.